Welcome. This is the dark host. Three daughters disappeared from society in the summer of 1852. Their father, one of the wealthiest men in Georgia, told neighbors they had fallen ill and needed complete isolation. For 11 months, no one saw them. When a new sheriff arrived in the county and started asking questions, he uncovered something that made even hardened lawmen sick to their stomachs. What Edmund Rutledge had done to his own daughters in the name of preserving his legacy would become one of the most disturbing cases in Georgia history. A calculated experiment, a chain of false promises, systematic abuse, and a conspiracy that reached all the way to the state capitol. Before we continue with the story of Edmund Rutledge and what really happened behind the locked doors of Clearwater Plantation, let's step back to where this nightmare truly began. In a hotel ballroom in Atlanta, where ambitious men gather to discuss the future of Southern agriculture, seeds of horror often start in places that look entirely respectable. The spring of 1852 brought unseasonable rain to central Georgia. Red clay roads turned into rivers of mud. The cotton planting was delayed by nearly 3 weeks. For most planters, this meant anxiety. Financial calculations stretched across long evenings. But for Edmund Rutledge, it meant an opportunity. He traveled to Atlanta for the Southern Agricultural Convention, an annual gathering where plantation owners, agricultural scientists, and businessmen met to discuss innovations in farming, crop rotation, and labor management. Edmund had built his wealth through calculation rather than inheritance. Unlike many plantation aristocrats who'd received their land and enslaved people through family lineage, he started with a modest cotton operation inherited from a distant uncle and transformed it into one of the most profitable enterprises in Hancock County. By 1852, his plantation, Clearwater, sprawled across nearly 2,000 acres and housed 87 enslaved workers. His cotton fetched premium prices in Savannah. His credit stood unquestioned at every bank between Augusta and Man. His name carried weight in the state legislature, where he served 2 terms, declining a third, to focus on his agricultural pursuits. He was 46 years old that spring, the widower of 3 years. His wife, Anne, had died of consumption in the winter of 1849, leaving him with 3 daughters and no male heir. This absence haunted him with increasing urgency. Under Georgia law, his estate would be divided among his daughters upon his death, likely fragmenting within a generation as they married and their husbands claimed portions. The Rutledge name would disappear, absorbed into other families and other lineages. Catherine, the eldest at 22, had inherited her mother's quiet dignity and love of literature. She spent hours in the plantation's library reading novels Edmund considered frivolous, but he permitted it anyway. Margaret, 20 years old, possessed her father's sharp mind for numbers. She helped review plantation accounts and displayed an almost masculine aptitude for business, impressing him and unsettling him. Elizabeth, barely 18, had talent for painting. She spent long afternoons capturing the Georgia landscape in watercolors, her easels near the creek. All three had educations unusual for Southern women: French, mathematics, history, music. Edmund had hired a tutor from Charleston who lived on the property and provided daily instruction. In Edmund's mind, this education served a purpose beyond accomplishment. He was grooming them for strategic marriages, men who would expand his commercial network, perhaps even consolidate neighboring plantations through alliance. But the convention introduced a concept that shifted Edmund's thinking entirely. The Grand Hotel's ballroom glittered on the evening of April 23, 1852. Nearly 200 men in black suits filled the space. Their conversations formed a low rumble, broken by whiskey glasses and the occasional burst of laughter. Edmund stood near the refreshment table, half listening to a conversation about new cotton gins when a voice from the podium cut through the noise. "Gentlemen, if I may have your attention, our next speaker comes to us from the College of Charleston." The speaker was Dr. Nathaniel Peaton, a thin man with wire-rimmed spectacles and an enthusiasm bordering on mania. For 40 minutes, he lectured on heredity and its applications to agricultural breeding. He spoke of bloodlines. He spoke of selective pairing. He talked about cattle and horses, then insisted the principles applied to all of God's creatures. A farmer who understood these principles, Peaton declared, could within a single generation revolutionize his operation. Edmund listened with growing intensity. Some men nodded. Others shifted uncomfortably. The implications hovered unspoken, because everyone in that room understood exactly what he meant. After the lecture, Edmund approached Dr. Peaton at the bar. They talked for over an hour. Edmund asked careful questions about hereditary traits and documented results. Peaton, flattered and loosened by bourbon, shared details he might never have offered sober. He spoke of plantation owners experimenting with selective pairing to produce stronger enslaved workers. He mentioned a planter near Charleston who, over 15 years, had created what Peaton called a specialized workforce. Then Peaton leaned close. "The key is controlling every variable. You cannot leave such matters to chance. You must think like a horse breeder." Edmund absorbed it all, already calculating, already racing toward something audacious and terrible. That idea formed over the next few days. On April 27th, he returned to Clearwater as his mind churned with possibilities. The spring rains had finally stopped, and workers were planting in extended shifts to make up for lost time. Edmund rode through the fields on his gray mare, observing labor with new eyes, not just for productivity, but for potential contribution to a larger design. Then his attention settled on Samuel. Samuel stood 6 3 tall, unusually large for any man in that era. He was 31 years old. born on the Rutland plantation. Son of workers Edmund's uncle had purchased in 1819. Unlike many enslaved men, Samuel could read. Edmund suspected it came from Samuel's mother, who had worked in the main house and might have picked up letters from discarded newspapers. Samuel didn't flaunt it. He never gave Edmund reason to punish him. But Edmund had watched him. Samuel studied printed notices posted in the plantation central yard and read them with clear comprehension. Beyond literacy, Samuel had intelligence. Practical intelligence. He understood crop rotation instinctively, predicted weather patterns with uncanny accuracy, redesigned irrigation to capture more water from the creek. He worked steadily, efficient, self-contained, dignified in a way Edmund found useful and vaguely threatening. Samuel was also unmarried. Edmund had kept him separate. Edmund believed Samuel's value lay in uniqueness, not in producing average offspring with average women. But now Edmund saw Samuel differently. Now Edmund saw potential. He began planning a systematic breeding program, one meant to bind the Rutland legacy to the plantation through blood. Not just labor. Not just property. A workforce of mixed-race laborers designed to remain outside both white and black society, unable to fully integrate, unable to leave, unable to claim rights. Edmund believed the permanence would be the genius. Grandchildren would carry Rutland blood, but live outside legal inheritance. They would be bound to land by biology and law. And Edmund would control them absolutely. The plan required more than forced breeding. It required justification, a narrative that protected Edmund from scandal. And it required cooperation, at least silence, from people with power. So on May 15th, Edmund invited Judge Horace Ketchum to dinner at Clearwater. Ketchum was 71, a fixture of Hancock County's legal system for 4 decades. He oversaw property disputes, inheritance cases, and criminal trials. He'd also grown wealthy through strategic investments in plantations, including a silent partnership in Edmund's operation. Ketchum had no children. No close family. Loyalty, Edmund understood, belonged to whoever served his financial interests. They dined on roasted duck and potatoes served by house slaves. After the meal, they evidence, witnesses, and, most importantly, a plaintiff willing to bring charges. If such an arrangement occurred privately on one's property with no external complaints, and if certain precautions were taken in how it was documented, then, legally speaking, no crime would exist to prosecute. Edmund leaned forward. What precautions? Ketchum's answer was chilling, a paper trail suggesting something other than willing participation by the white parties. Sworn statements describing an attack or assault, something that would protect the reputation of any white women involved and criminalize the enslaved person if questions ever arose. Judge Ketchum, no witnesses, no case. Edmund's pulse quickened. The judge was outlining the legal framework. And then Edmund pressed the most dangerous part. What if the enslaved participant was promised freedom in exchange for cooperation? Ketchum answered with a thin, cold smile. Promises made to slaves carry no legal weight. They could be honored or broken at the master's discretion. A wise man could dangle the promise to secure cooperation, then revoke it once it served its purpose. Edmund and Ketchum spoke for another hour. Edmund revealed more of his specific plan, asking for legal protection and advice. When Ketchum left Clearwater that night, Edmund didn't just have advice. He had a co-conspirator, someone with the legal authority to shield the experiment from interference. But Edmund needed more than legal cover. He needed medical documentation. A physician to certify health, pregnancies, and births, while certifying whatever narrative Edmund constructed. He needed someone who wouldn't ask uncomfortable questions. Dr. Leonard Strickland had been Clearwater's plantation doctor for 6 years. Edmund had hired him from Augusta after the previous physician died of typhoid. Strickland was 42. He was competent enough for routine matters, but unmemorable in every other respect. And crucially, he was deeply in debt. Edmund learned this through discreet inquiries, gambling losses and poor investments, leaving him owing several main creditors. On May 22, Edmund summoned Strickland to the plantation under the pretense of reviewing the health of his enslaved workforce. After examining workers in the overseer's quarters, Edmund invited him into the main house for lunch. Conversation began politely, cases of dentri, quinine for fever, common injuries. Then Edmund steered to delicate territory. Doctor, I have a proposition. Edmund described a breeding program, carefully selected pairings to produce stronger, more intelligent workers. He needed medical documentation throughout, health examinations, pregnancy monitoring, birth records. Edmund offered Strickland $500 per year above his normal fee, an enormous fortune for a rural doctor. In exchange, discretion and cooperation. Strickland absorbed it with guarded discomfort. You're talking about arranged pairings among your slaves. Edmund replied carefully, among others, yes. The silence that followed was profound. Strickland's face turned pale. "Your daughters?" he asked, quietly. Edmund interrupted. "That is my concern, not yours." Strickland's hands trembled slightly, but he was trapped. He knew it. Edmund knew it. The debts were crushing him. This offer represented survival. In 3 days, Edmund later would have his certainty. And Strickland accepted. May 22nd, Strickland coerced by debt. Edmund now had Judge Ketchum's legal protection, Strickland's medical accomplice, and the infrastructure for documentation. All that remained was the hardest part: to inform his daughters of their role in his grand experiment. Edmund chose a Sunday evening in early June. He gathered Catherine, Margaret, and Elizabeth in the parlor. The room felt stifling even with windows open. Edmund stood before the fireplace, though no fire burned in the summer heat. He spoke in the posture his daughters recognized from childhood, the one he used when delivering pronouncements that permitted no argument. He began that he had made decisions regarding the future of the family. Decisions ensuring the Rutledge name and the plantation remained intact for generations. The daughters exchanged glances. Elizabeth folded her hands, a gesture of nervous anticipation. Edmund explained he had no sons, no male heirs to inherit Clearwater. Under current law, the estate would divide among his daughters, then fragment through their marriages. So the Rutledge legacy would disappear within a single generation. June, family meeting in the parlor. Catherine responded gently, as if still hoping for reason. "Father, surely there are arrangements." Edmund interrupted. He said he had found a way to create heirs permanently bound to the land, never able to claim ownership, never able to leave. A workforce of exceptional quality, combining the best attributes of Rutledge bloodline with carefully selected traits from the labor force. Margaret's face drained of color. "Father, what exactly are you proposing?" Edmund laid it out like a business plan. Each daughter would produce children with Samuel, the strongest, most intelligent enslaved worker. The children would be raised at Clearwater, educated enough to manage complex work, but kept in a state of legal bondage. They would form the core of a permanent labor force that could never be sold away or lost to marriage. Catherine whispered, "This is madness." Edmund replied flatly that he could and would. Then he threatened them with starvation of the soul and the wallet. If they refused, they'd have no home, no inheritance, no means of support. No respectable family would take them in once he made his disobedience public. He would write them out of his will entirely. Elizabeth began to cry. Margaret demanded to know what Samuel had to say. Edmund said Samuel had no choice. Samuel would be promised freedom and land once the children were born and weaned. Margaret called it a lie. Edmund didn't deny it. He made it clear what he promised a slave was his concern. Their concern was fulfilling their duty. He gave them 1 week to accept willingly. If they refused, he would declare all 3 daughters mentally incompetent and have Judge Ketchum commit them to a state asylum in Milledgeville. Paperwork, he claimed, could be completed in a single day. Then he left them there, without argument, without agency, without escape. Edmund threatens asylum commitment. The following morning, Edmund summoned Samuel to his study. Samuel entered wearily, respectful, but not servile. Edmund gestured for him to sit. Slaves were never invited to sit in the master's study. Edmund offered a proposition. He said it could secure Samuel's freedom and future. Over the next 30 minutes, Edmund outlined a plan, with strategic omissions and calculated lies. Samuel was selected because he was the finest worker, intelligent, strong, and steady. Samuel would participate so Edmund's daughters could bear children with exceptional traits. In exchange, freedom papers after the children were born and weaned. Also 20 acres of farmland near the Tennessee border. And $500 to start his new life. Samuel listened in stunned silence. Too generous to believe. But Edmund's face showed only earnest sincerity. "You'll be free," Edmund promised. He even spoke of better quarters, better food. He immediately isolated the daughters from outside contact, telling neighbors they were suffering from a delicate condition requiring privacy and bed rest. Windows were fitted with locks on the outside. An enslaved nursemaid named Penny was assigned full-time, bringing meals and emptying chamber pots, ensuring they never left their rooms unsupervised. Samuel returned to field work but remained isolated, housed in his cottage. Other enslaved people avoided him, sensing something was wrong without knowing what. Edmund spent his days planning the nursery and designing the education program for the children beginning at age 4. At night, he wrote in his hidden journal, "Pride of a scientist on the verge of breakthrough." But someone outside Clearwater began to notice irregularities. We will continue with Sheriff Thomas Brennan arriving, the clues, the ambush on December 27th, and the rescue and trial. The summer of 1852 gave way to autumn. Cotton fields turned white with harvest. Temperatures dropped from unbearable to oppressive. And county social life resumed after the agricultural pause of late summer. It was during that season of renewal that Sheriff Thomas Brennan arrived in Sparta to assume his new position. Brennan was 34. A veteran of the Mexican-American War. He returned to civilian life with commendations and disillusionment with authority. He served 2 years as a deputy sheriff in Wilmington, North Carolina before applying for the open position in Hancock County. The position opened unexpectedly when the previous sheriff died of a heart attack in July. The county commissioners hired Brennan because he was an outsider. Hancock County had developed a reputation for lack of enforcement of certain laws, an arrangement between wealthy planters and local officials that kept plantation business comfortable. Some commissioners wanted that tradition to continue. Others wanted real law enforcement. Unknown enough to shake entrenched corruption. September 1852, Sheriff Thomas Brennan arrives in Sparta. He arrived on September 15th, living above the courthouse. His first weeks were spent learning territory, meeting deputies he inherited, reviewing court records, outstanding warrants. He formed impressions fast. The county was wealthy, but unequal. A handful of massive plantations controlled most land and resources. Smaller farmers struggled at the margins. The previous sheriff rarely visited the larger plantations, treating them like sovereign territories. Brennan's military background taught him to observe before acting. He watched and listened. And he learned which names kept appearing in conversations, those who held power beyond their titles. Edmund Ruttle's name came up often. Respect and weariness mixed together. During a tavern conversation in late September, a merchant named Hosea Grafton mentioned Ruttle's daughters in a way that caught Brennan's attention. "Shame about those girls," Grafton said. "All three took sick at once. Been locked away in that big house for months now." Brennan asked what kind of sickness. Grafton answered it was some feminine trouble, requiring privacy and bed rest, and that no one had seen them since June. Brennan filed the information away. It might mean nothing, collective illness did happen. But for someone like him, it registered as worth remembering. No one has seen the daughters since June. His curiosity deepened when he met Dr. Strickland by chance at the courthouse. Strickland was there to file death certificates. 2 slaves from a plantation east of Sparta had died of fever. Routine paperwork. But something about Strickland's demeanor bothered Brennan, nervousness. When Strickland left, Brennan asked about him. Competent, but folks said he had a gambling problem. Nervous doctor. Routine death paperwork. Maybe it meant nothing. But the impression lingered. Then Brennan saw the connection between Rutledge and Strickland, late October, when he rode past Clearwater. Strickland's buggy on the main road. Then Strickland stopped at a small office in Sparta where Judge Ketchum maintained a private practice. The doctor went inside. He remained nearly an hour. Brennan waited across the street pretending to examine his horse's shoes. When Strickland emerged, he looked even more agitated than before. Ketchum stood in the doorway, watching Strickland leave with something between satisfaction and warning. Brennan had 3 pieces now. Ruttle's daughters locked away. A nervous doctor visiting the plantation. A judge meeting privately with the doctor. Alone, each could be innocent. Together, the pattern troubled him. So he investigated carefully. Merchants who supplied clear water. Farmers whose land bordered Rutledge property. Everyone with recent knowledge. Stories varied. Some described Rutledge as model, firm but fair. Others hinted at darker rumors. Runaway enslaved people never returned. Punishments beyond normal brutality. A coldness bordering on cruelty. About the daughters, reports were consistent. No public appearance since early June. Church attendance stopped. Shopping trips stopped. Everything stopped abruptly. Then Brennan decided he needed to visit Clearwater directly. He manufactured a pretext, a wanted fugitive supposedly seen in the area. On November 3rd, he rode to Clearwater. The approach was impressive. A long avenue of oaks led to a 2-story plantation house of whitewashed brick with columns and broad verandas. Fields stretched in every direction, harvested. Workers burned stubble and managed controlled fires that filled the sky with smoke. An overseer met Brennan at the entrance. His name was Thaddeus Porter. Porter showed neither warmth nor hostility. "Sheriff Brennan," Porter asked, "what brings you to Clearwater?" Brennan explained his fictional runaway. Porter listened without expression, then shook his head. "Haven't seen anyone matching that description." Brennan asked if he could speak with Rutledge directly. Porter hesitated fractionally. "Mr. Rutledge." He visited the county records office after hours. Let himself in with keys he had. 3 hours by lamplight reviewing property records and court documents connected to Edmund Rutledge. He discovered a portrait of methodical acquisition and legal maneuvering. Rutledge absorbed smaller neighboring farms over the decade through foreclosures. He engineered credit extensions, then called in debts. He'd been involved in lawsuits, resolved in his favor, Judge Ketchum often presiding. Slave purchases and cotton sales documented. Tax payments documented. Then Brennan found something that made him pause. A property transfer dated September 10, 1852. Registered, but not yet executed. It transferred 20 acres near the Tennessee border from Rutledge to Samuel Freedman. Signed by Rutledge and witnessed by Judge Ketchum. Conditional upon fulfillment of terms to be determined. September 10, 1852, land transfer conditional upon the terms. It was strange. A promise of land to a slave, especially right after the daughter's isolation began. Brennan couldn't find other records referencing Samuel besides this. No bill of sale. No sale showing how Rutledge acquired him, suggesting he was born on the plantation. Then Brennan quiet investigated Judge Ketchum. He learned Ketchum was wealthy beyond judicial salary. He learned Ketchum had investments in multiple plantations, including Clearwater. Ketchum had a reputation for ruling in favor of planters in disputes involving slaves or labor. And he learned Ketchum and Rutledge dined together regularly, a partnership beyond professional courtesy. Brennan's suspicions crystallized on November 20th. A farmer named Amos Pewitt came into his office hand in hand, clearly nervous. Pewitt said he boarded Clearwater's northern edge. He'd heard screaming from the direction of the main house, sudden, painful anguish. Not a scream of fear exactly. It lasted only seconds, then stopped abruptly. He didn't investigate further. But he said something that hit Brennan like a stone. He didn't believe it sounded like an enslaved woman. It sounded educated. Refined. Like one of the Rutledge girls. A scream from the main house. Not fear, pain or anguish, educated, refined. Now Brennan needed proof. He needed someone inside Clearwater. So he frequented the market in Sparta on Saturdays, watching for people from Clearwater who might speak privately. On December 7th, it happened. He saw an older black woman selling eggs. Brennan waited until she was alone. "Those eggs look fresh," he said, buying a dozen. Then he spoke quietly. "I'm Sheriff Brennan. I'm concerned about the Rutledge daughters. Are they truly ill?" Her hands froze for a moment. "Barely audible. Can't say, sir." Then she corrected him in a way that sounded like fate. She whispered 3 words, just for him. "Samuel's Cottage Nights." Then she moved away quickly, calling prices to other customers. 3 words, meaning everything and nothing. December 7th, Samuel's Cottage Nights. By December, the reality inside Clearwater was undeniable. 3 pregnant white women were confined to their rooms. Dr. Strickland made weekly visits, clinical detachment barely masking discomfort. Edmund's satisfaction grew with each examination. Nursery planning. Education planning. Samuel, though, began to unravel. In September, he returned to field work, but remained isolated in his cottage. He was neither trusted by enslaved people nor accepted by white overseers. In mid-December, he made a mistake born of desperation. He approached Edmund while the master inspected cotton storage barns, asking when his freedom papers would be prepared. Edmund told him the agreement said after the children were born and weaned. So not before at least a year. Samuel confronted the problem. The paper Edmund had shown him was different. Edmund answered coldly, "He determines when terms are complete." He could delay indefinitely. Samuel still didn't know what Brennan truly had. But Brennan insisted he could stop Edmund if he had evidence, testimony from the daughters and corroboration. Samuel objected. As a slave, his word meant nothing in court. Brennan said it could matter if corroborated by the daughters. The issue: the daughters were locked away. Brennan left before dawn. Brennan moved quickly. He visited 3 banks claiming unrelated official investigation and learned Strickland's debts had been paid off in September. Substantial sums, cleared at once. Payments had come from an account linked to Edmund Rutledge. Again, not proof alone. A starting point. On December 22, Brennan rode to Strickland's home in Augusta. He arrived unannounced in the evening. Strickland opened the door, face pale when he saw the sheriff's badge. Brennan accused him of being paid to document activities violating Georgia law. Strickland resisted. But Brennan didn't back down. He said Edmund had paid off Strickland's gambling debts in exchange for silence. Strickland broke. He cooperated. And Brennan obtained a confession, a sworn statement describing Edmund's entire plan. It described forced examinations and documentation. It admitted false medical reporting. It described post-dated documents signed by Judge Ketchum designed to protect Edmund from prosecution and trap Samuel by accusing him of assault. Brennan realized something worse. A sitting judge conspired to imprison potential witnesses, ensuring testimony could never happen. Strickland wrote out everything and signed. By morning, Brennan had a signed, notarized physician statement. But it wasn't enough alone. They still needed the daughter's testimony and corroboration from Samuel. So Brennan drove to Milledgeville. Reached the capital on Christmas Eve. The Attorney General's office was closed, but Brennan tracked down Attorney General Harrison Vance at his home. Vance read the confession and went from irritation to shock. It involved criminal conspiracy with multiple officers of the court, Judge Ketchum alone. Brennan asked for authority to remove the women and arrest Edmund before Edmund discovered the investigation. Vance said proving it required testimony, but Ketchum could declare the daughters incompetent before they testified. They planned coordinated action. Remove Ketchum temporarily. Secure the women. Arrest Rutledge. Then something happened. A warning reached Edmund. On December 26th, Edmund Rutledge received a visitor. A clerk from the Attorney General's office named Wallace Dina. Dina sold information to interested parties. He told Edmund about the warrants and planned arrest set for December 27th. Edmund paid Dina $200 and dismissed him. Narration, script. By morning, Sheriff Brennan left Milledgeville before dawn with 3 state marshals. They planned to reach Clearwater by mid-morning and arrest Rutledge by afternoon. They lost Surprise 10 mi outside Sparta. A tree had been felled across the road. Gunfire erupted from woods on both sides. One marshal went down immediately, shot through the chest. Another's horse panicked and threw him. Brennan drew his revolver and returned fire. But the ambush was too well prepared. In less than 5 minutes, 2 marshals were dead, one badly wounded, and Brennan was shot through his left shoulder. The attackers, at least 6 men, masked, melted into the woods. Brennan limped into Sparta, leaving dead behind. That afternoon, the wounded marshal died. By evening, Brennan realized the consequences. Edmund would destroy evidence. The daughters were now in immediate danger. And Samuel was in even worse danger. He was the key witness. Brennan recruited for armed men from Sparta. Not trained law enforcement, but armed and angry. They rode for Clearwater. On screen, December 27, 1852, ambush on the road. Meanwhile, Edmund implemented his contingency plan. He summoned Judge Ketchum to the plantation. They met in Edmund's study. Edmund demanded execution of the insurance, filing incompetence declarations. Ketchum warned about timing, about how it would look after the ambush. Edmund insisted the story was protection. the daughters had been violated by a slave. A slave would soon be arrested and executed. In their delicate mental state, they couldn't be interrogated or testify. Ketchum was trapped. He signed. Then Edmund ordered Samuel's murder. "Get Samuel. Bring him to the creek's deep bend past the eastern field. Make it look like an attempted escape drowned. Hold him under if needed. 2 or 3 days before the body was found." Virgil Haskell complied, following orders for 15 years without questioning. Narration, script. That night, Haskell and 2 men went to Samuel's cottage. They told him Edmund wanted to see him urgently. Samuel sensed something wrong, but had no choice. They walked toward the eastern fields. At the creek, Haskell grabbed Samuel from behind. They wrestled him toward water. Samuel fought desperately but was outnumbered. He tried to break free and ran briefly. But one man tackled him at the creek's edge. They dragged him into the water and pushed his head under. The creek was icy. The current was strong. Samuel thrashed as consciousness faded. Then, a gunshot. Haskell released him suddenly. Samuel's head broke the surface as he gasped air and coughed. Gunshots and shouting followed. Figures on horseback, Sheriff Brennan and 4 armed men. One overseer went down. Hands raised in surrender. Haskell was running toward woods when Brennan's men fired and Haskell collapsed, clutching his side. Brennan waded into the creek to pull Samuel out. Then they rode to the main house. Edmund barred the front door. Brennan's men broke it open with axes. They found Edmund sitting at his desk as if entertaining expected guests. Edmund called it illegal entry. Brennan replied he was under arrest for conspiracy, attempted murder, and false imprisonment of the daughters. Edmund said the daughters were ill and could not be disturbed. Judge Ketchum had signed incompetence orders prohibiting questioning. Brennan demanded the truth anyway. Samuel stepped forward and indicated the locked rooms. 2nd floor eastern wing. 3 rooms in a row, each locked from outside. Brennan opened the doors one by one. Catherine, Margaret, Elizabeth, all heavily pregnant, staring in hope and terror. Catherine spoke first. "Are you here to help us?" Brennan confirmed it. He was Sheriff Thomas Brennan. They were safe now. Their father was under arrest. All 3 women began crying, not sadness, but relief. After 7 months locked away. The daughters are found alive, locked from outside. The trial began on February 14, 1853 in Georgia State Court in Milledgeville. Venue moved from Hancock County due to concerns about local bias and Judge Ketchum's influence. Ketchum was suspended from his position and faced separate charges of conspiracy and judicial corruption. The prosecution presented Strickland's confession, Samuel's testimony, and detailed statements from Catherine, Margaret, and Elizabeth describing threats, forced isolation, and the systematic nature of Edmund's plan. Defense argued Edmund tried to preserve his family legacy through unconventional but not illegal means. They claimed daughters consented before later regretting. They argued Samuel participated willingly in exchange for freedom. The trial lasted 9 days. Public opinion was divided. Some viewed Edmund as a monster. Others claimed he was a desperate father in an imperfect world. Because the victims were white women, prosecution was possible. Had he done it to enslaved women, they said, no trial would have occurred at all. On February 23, the jury returned guilty verdicts on false imprisonment and conspiracy. They acquitted Edmund of attempted murder, finding insufficient evidence he personally ordered Brennan's ambush or Samuel's drowning attempt. His overseer shot acted independently, defense successfully argued. Edmund was sentenced to 12 years in state prison. Judge Ketchum received 8 years and permanent disbarment. Dr. Strickland received a suspended sentence and his medical license revoked in Georgia. He moved to Alabama and practiced under a different name. The 3 daughters gave birth in late March and early April of 1853. 2 boys and a girl, all healthy. Catherine's son was named Thomas after the sheriff who saved them. Margaret's daughter was named Hope. Elizabeth's son was named Samuel. The daughters faced a choice. Edmund Rutledge died in prison in 1859 of pneumonia. He never expressed remorse. History will judge me more kindly than this corrupt court has. Catherine burned the letter without responding. The case remained controversial for decades. Some historians argue it represents the limits of patriarchal power being checked by law. Others note similar abuses continued, unprosecuted and unreported, because enslaved victims had no access to justice. Edmund's crime wasn't unique. Only the prosecution was. Clearwater Plantation was eventually subdivided and sold. The main house stood empty for years, then burned down in 18. Dark history faded, except for those whose lives were destroyed by Edmund's ambition. A legacy built on coercion. Institutions enabled the abuse. And now, what do you think of this story? Do you believe everything Edmund Rutledge did was fully exposed? Or could there have been even darker secrets buried at Clearwater? Leave a comment. And if you enjoyed this tale and want more historical horror stories like this, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Share this video with someone who appreciates the darkest corners of American history. Until next time, remember, the past is never as distant as we'd like to believe.